Hey, my name is Veronica Larraya, and I welcome you to Wise Humanities Summit. Today, we are joined by Rebecca Koritz. She's a children's rights activist with an extensive and unique path within alternative education, and dedicates most of her time to giving workshops for parents and creating content in Spanish for Spanish-speaking families who have embraced the road for freedom for themselves and for their children. Rebecca was born in Sweden, but she lives in Mexico since 2003. And today, Rebecca will be sharing about our children in the future. What is the education that serves them? Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Veronica. It is a pleasure being here with you.
Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, this topic is something that's so important to ask ourselves, no?
Yes, it is. It is because, and I think that it's been probably almost 20 years where the Western world has lived in fear. I can see that after the Twin Towers, it entered our consciousness that, wow, even though we're rich, we're vulnerable. And then you throw in a little bit of climate crisis, and then you throw in a little bit of COVID-19, and the fear is huge. And we're all thinking about the future and our kids and how are they going to survive in this world that is very clearly falling apart.
So, what do you believe we need to consider in regards to our children's future?
Yeah, I think actually, Veronica, that we need to remember that we're part of nature and we're part of life. Because I think that like the species that we belong to, we've kind of separated ourselves from life and from nature, thinking that we came here to organize everything. But we're not here to organize it. We're part of this. And we are the ones responsible for destroying the planet. And so the only way I think to stop that is to realize that we're part of this. And that means understanding also that when a baby comes into being, it isn't the mother who is controlling how it's growing in the belly. You have been pregnant, I have been pregnant. We were only incubators. If we had to be in control, we would have been lost and we would have messed up our pregnancies because we don't know how to produce what hormone or what thing is necessary in order to make this baby grow. And the baby is basically doing this job himself or herself. They're doing this in the belly. They're growing a heart, a vertebra, hands, nails, hair, eyes, everything. And I think that we need to remember this, and remember that when they're born, they continue to develop. There is actually not a big difference between a baby and a seed. For instance, an avocado seed that already contains the entire tree. And no avocado seed looks alike. And even if you take 10 avocado seeds and you plant them in the same environment, they will begin to grow a root in different times. The roots will look different. And when they start coming out of the ground, the little sprout, that also looks different. And they will develop branches differently. They will develop fruits in different times. And it is the same with us humans. Our babies are like these seeds. They have all this programming, all this configuration to grow. And I think that the best thing we can do as parents, not knowing what the world is going to look like tomorrow, less even in a year, less in 5 years or 10 years, is to actually treat our kids as if they were seeds, unique, and give them the composting they need, the water they need, the love and care, but not pruning them, not trying to make a 20 centimeter long plant, that an avocado plant, try to pull it and be yelling at it, produce avocados now, because it's too early. And what we do is we sit with nature and we wait, when we provide the best circumstances. And that is what we need to do with our kids, and learn to trust that they are going to develop in an organic way, in the best way for them.
Oh, that's beautiful to see it like that. Thank you so much for that metaphor.
Yeah.
To really like this witness, no, them
Yeah.
as they develop,
Yeah.
and not
And
pushing them to
yeah, and
perform.
acknowledging too that, you know, we have tomato plants, banana plants, watermelons, avocados, lime trees. We've got so many different kinds. And what we are doing most of the time, Veronica, is like trying to force a tomato plant to produce bananas instead of just respecting the nature of each child.
This is I feel this is like a very clear example, and a
Yeah, in
gift.
a way, we could just stop here, because that's all parents need to know.
Hmm. And when you talk about the compost and the water,
Yeah.
like in nurturing values and or modeling, what can you say? What is that compost we as
Yeah.
parents or as adults need to?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of it is trust. And that is really like, that is the key to all of this, because if we don't trust our children, they will feel it. And that is actually what happened to us. You know, our parents didn't trust us. And so we didn't develop trust in ourselves. And so we can't trust others unless our children. So part of the composting is definitely trust. Learn how to trust and learn how to identify when we freak out as parents. Learn to identify our fears and learn to question our fears. That is also part of this. It's part of like the composting, and we have to do the composting. That means that we need to take our crap and transform it into gold, right? Before we can offer it to the kids, instead of spraying our kids with insect repellent poisonous stuff because we're in fear. That isn't organic, that isn't healthy. So it is a lot of questioning how we've been brought up, what patterns we are continuing to actually move forward, and to be able to recognize that this isn't working. And so like all the methods of trying to manipulate the kids or to control the kids or turn them into something that we want, we need to stop doing that. It's like, oh, I'm going to have this child, and I imagine it's going to be this beautiful oak tree. And then it is just a bean plant. And I'm disappointed because it's behaving like a bean plant. And I can't even see the beauty in the beans because I'm imagining an oak. And so it's like, again, going back to ourselves and look at our expectations, learn to throw them away, and be completely unconditional and say, this human being that I brought forth isn't mine. It's hers or his to be what they want to be. And the composting and the watering is trying to facilitate for these kids to grow up as they were destined to be, not me messing up with their path or having opinions on their choices. Or I mean, all of this comes from wanting the best for them, but I think that we're really, really confused as to what is best for them. And so look at that.
Yeah, I feel like with trust, it opens so much. It's like a respect comes in. It's like you see
Yeah.
the being as, and you respect its nature,
Yeah.
and then you trust its nature, no? As you say,
Yeah.
with the seed, with the same with your child,
Yeah. Yeah.
and many
And
other
so
things fall, like
yeah, and like,
ideas.
yeah, and like I think that, you know, parents, they want their kids to be successful. It doesn't mean necessarily that they want the kids to have a really cool car and a huge house, but rather like to connect with themselves and know how to listen to themselves and have integrity and know how to choose good friends and maintain relationships and be happy. That's what most parents want. And then we have to kind of set aside our expectations and our fears and start focusing on creating a relationship with this human being, not from a standpoint, I know more than you because I'm an adult, but rather, what do you want and what is important to you and how can I support that for you?
Hmm. And you were talking about before that you know, we put sometimes our poison, to say, you know, into these beautiful plants because you have all that. And then when it comes to education, you know, most children in the planet are going to schools,
Yeah,
and there is all different sorts of education. Can you talk a little bit about this as a way of, you know, because it's
yeah,
not so many educational systems are based on trust. So can you
no,
share a bit?
yeah. Yeah, I think that what you're mentioning now, Veronica, is really part of what we need to challenge and what we need to change. Because if I continue with this metaphor of plants, um, the educational system all over the world is designed to make kids fit into one specific mold. It's like taking seeds, different kinds of seeds, and putting them in the same soil and giving them the same kind of sunshine, the same kind of light, the same kind of temperature, the same kind of composting. But all these seeds, they need different things, right? Like where I live, for instance, we don't have apple trees because it's too warm, but we do have bananas. So like placing an apple seed here is really fruitless. It's not going to grow. And even if it grows a little bit, it's not going to produce apples, right? So what the conventional school system is about is really, it is really that. It is exactly like trying to make kids fit into a certain mold. And with the idea that if they do all this at the same time as everyone else, they are going to be successful in life. Now, you know, these 20 last years, we've had more changes than we've had the last 200 years. And it's only going to change quicker. It's only going to go faster. And so the school system was designed 200 years ago. It was designed for a different time, for different needs, where really it wasn't about learning kids, like teaching kids how to learn and read and write, like, you know, like how to do something good for them. It was actually designed to create obedient citizens, obedient workers, so that the factories could be productive and produce results and again. And this is really a huge experiment that has been going on for 200 years. But it's been going on for 2 centuries, and now most of us believe that this is the way it has to be, that without school, we would be lost. But actually, this is the experiment. You know, what was before was a really much more organic process where kids learned through their environment, through life, through the people that were around them. There was really no one teaching formally, but they were still learning what they had to learn, right? Even if they were a farmer or if it was someone in the 15th century like Leonardo da Vinci, who taught himself everything because he was curious, right? And it is again this trusting that kids learn what they need, and they learn how to walk, and they learn how to speak one to several languages without any formal education. And they can actually learn everything else they need just by being exposed to it.
Mm.
And so to me, now that we are really reaching a tipping point, I think, in the development and evolution of the planet, I think we have to go back to a more organic and natural lifestyle. And that includes education, where we trust that kids learn what they need to learn, and where there is no agenda designed by adults who have no idea what the kids will need in the future, but rather listen to our kids, because they come here with their programming and their configuration to actually be able to survive if we don't interfere and cut off branches or say like, no, 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 you are growing too slowly, no, you're going too fast, but rather really listen to each and every one of them. So for me, the answer is self-directed education.
Mm. That's amazing. Yeah, this what you say about cutting, the branches. It's
Yes.
it's like um, so in us, no? Like we are. I mean, we have been trained to control everything around us, and that it fits the society. As
Yeah.
you say, education has been mostly for us to serve good a society that was supposed to serve us in a way, and it
Yes.
does in a certain way, but it's not. Yeah, we are not connected with ourselves, with nature. We lost trust. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So let it go of control and trust is kind of the key.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
sounds like.
And it's really hard. It's really hard because I think it's counterintuitive. Like I think that when we are afraid, and we are now, we are afraid of the future, then we kind of want to control. And control is the opposite of trust. It's really like trying to force things to develop in a certain way, whereas trust is, I let go and I just have faith that this process is going to develop organically. Yeah.
And what do you think is the core intention of the different of self-directed education or conventional education? Like I feel like they have a core intention that sometimes we are not even aware of. We send the children to school and we don't even know why. They need to learn to read or to do mathematics. But what do you think is that intention?
Yeah, I think that there is a hidden agenda, definitely. And that hidden agenda has to do with why we have this system. It is society that wants to be able to sustain itself. And how do you do that? Well, by making children, turning them into citizens that are loyal and that can contribute to society, right? And so that means no critical thinking. Don't think for yourself. Learn how to obey. Learn how to conform. Don't take initiatives. Don't be creative. Just repeat what has been done before. And it is an amazingly effective tool. School is really, it goes like this with society. Like school actually builds society the way it is, and society keeps sustaining the school system so that they can continue in a very pyramidal way where, I mean, we don't even know who have set the agenda. We don't even know who have designed school the way it is with a national curriculum. Like, why do we have different subjects, for instance? Who designed that? Who decided exactly what it is that is going to be part of the curriculum? You can look at any country, Veronica, and we don't know who those people are. but they are having an immense power because they are deciding what our kids should learn without any guarantee that that is what they will actually need. Right? So I know that there are studies that show that adults that have gone through the educational system retain 2% of the content. So if you ask me, if you give me a test, for instance, on everything I was supposed to learn in my 12 years of school, maximum at 2% I'm going to retain. I don't remember anything more, which is kind of ineffective because we're talking about 12 years of my life.
Yeah.
That were good for what? Well, they taught me how to conform, how to obey, how to be really so afraid of making mistakes that I'm not going to venture out of my comfort zone, which makes me stay with the work that I have. It makes me stay in the relationship I have. Even though I'm not happy, I'm staying and I'm not moving, because moving is also like, ooh, you know, it's scary. You don't know. Any kind of change is perceived as dangerous. I have to leave my comfort zone. And I think that the only constant in life is change. And now that everything is changing, most people are having really a big challenge adapting to these changes because they thought everything was in a status quo. And so that is something that I feel that the school system is responsible for.
Yeah, it's like all the information that we get in the schools or over the years is almost gone after a while, and then what stays is the behavior, like, and the rules and all these things. That's what we actually really learn.
Yeah.
It's amazing that when you share that. One thing that came up when you were talking is like, it's almost like before we used to live in tribes or in families and intergenerational groups and stuff, and like the school is in a way like substitute. Like, okay, they don't have the tribe to learn from, and then we go to school and everything becomes very narrow. Like the lineage, you learn about history instead of learning about lineage from your grandfather or mother or whoever in the tribe. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that is another key, you know, going back to the community. And sometimes, like right now, the community is everywhere in the world. You know, we connect through the internet, and our community isn't necessarily what we have here where we live, but rather everywhere. And it doesn't really matter. I think that connecting with and building community is going to be part of the most important things that we will have to do in order to survive as a species.
Yeah. And what would you say is the healthy role of education in the children's, in the development of a child?
Yeah.
What would be?
Yeah, like if you see that the healthy aspect, when you can support a child in his or her process of exploring and discovering and trying out things and playing, if you can do that and you can provide the child with an environment where he or she can actually really just full on explore, then you will support the child in finding his, her passions, interests, talents, and be really attentive. And if you see that you have, for instance, a musical child, don't push. Don't be like, oh, now I'm signing you up for piano lessons, but rather like, what do you need? Like, tell me, what do you need? And let them be free to try and to fail and to say, I didn't like this. Instead of looking at it as a lack of commitment, because they need to try to figure out what's their thing, right? And so when education can do that for a child, when we can do that and create that kind of educational setting, it is healthy. It's healthy because the kid grows up learning how to connect with him or herself,
Mm.
and his or her inner compass develops little by little, and they get so connected with themselves that they won't have to go through what many of us adults have. You know, we're like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I'm good at. No, we don't, because we were disconnected from it already as young kids.
Mm.
So I think that in education, you can find a really, really healthy aspect, but it has to be child led. The
Mm.
child has to show you the way. As soon as you try to kind of control it or manipulate it or steer it into a certain direction, we're actually hindering our kids from learning.
Mm. I love what you just shared, because as a parent, or I don't know how it is for teachers and stuff, but it's so hard when you want to raise your children like this, because society doesn't support it so much. There's a lot of fear
No.
about letting a child lead its own way and
Yeah.
nurturing them. It's not that they have, it's but this the development, discovery is sometimes, and sometimes you question yourself even. It's like, oh, am I
Yeah.
doing right? Maybe it's not going to be so social, or it's a lot of fear in it. As a parent,
Yeah.
it's hard to
Yeah.
to
And I think that, that is the biggest challenge for us, to recognize the fear, to
mm,
look at the fear and say, okay, am I now trying to control my child because I'm afraid?
mm,
Or can I look at this fear and take responsibility for it, transform it into composting,
mm,
and actually help it serve my child instead of making my child as fearful as I am?
mm, yeah. And
I'm not saying it's easy.
no, it's not, of course.
It requires a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for some people, we live in countries where school is compulsory,
Yeah.
and then how can we either create an education in the countries that is compulsory, that supports the children and nurture them instead of shaping them, and for those who live in countries where you can do self-directed education, can you talk about this a little bit? Like, how can we,
Yeah.
step into?
Yeah. Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, I come from Sweden, right? And Sweden is one of those perfect examples of a country that has imposed compulsory education for everyone. Obviously, with the idea of creating equality, but it isn't equal, because since we're all so different, we all need different things. And since we need different things, that compulsory education harms a lot of children. And so, what is happening in Sweden, for instance, is that the parents that can and that have that consciousness, that see that their kids are not doing well in the system or they won't do well, they leave. We call them school refugees, right? So they leave. And the ones that are stuck, I feel for them, because there's like no way around the system. You have to send your kids. But I still feel that as a parent, as long as you work with yourself, and as long as you look at your fears and you look at the programmings you have from your own schooling experience, and as long as you read up on how kids learn naturally, how kids learn through play, so that you can give them that counterbalance when they're not in school, at least that makes a big difference for the kids.
Mm. So offer them this trust we talked about before, and
Yeah,
allow them to expand. And
yeah,
mm,
exactly. So I mean, I do work with both Swedish and Latin American families, and actually I have been working with American families too, that are in this transition and that want to support their kids better. And some have their kids in the traditional system and others don't, but they still benefit equally. They benefit equally from looking at their programmings, from recognizing what has made it so hard for them to trust their kids, and little by little start questioning their programmings, their fears, and starting to do things differently.
Mm.
And the kids respond, they respond so quickly.
And for those parents who want to step into self-directed education, can you share a little bit about what is this and how how to start, or just a little?
Yeah, self-directed education is really the most organic form of education that I can think of, just because it's child-led and because the kid is choosing, right? So we have some different principles. I would say the foundation is trust. Trust the child. Trust the child is capable of making decisions. Trust the child knows what he or she needs, how, when, where. Um, some of the basic principles are really, learning is natural and happens all the time. And we see it more like a secondary effect of any kind of human activity. So it doesn't matter if your bike breaks down and you need to fix your tire. You are learning from that. You're learning how to solve a situation. We also think that we learn so much better than we can do when we can make those decisions of what we want to do with our time, instead of having it imposed, like, now you have to do this because I say so. But if you do it because you really want it, then you learn how to become perseverant too, because you're connected with your passion and with your interest. And even though it might be hard, you will still push through. We also know that you learn more from experiences and from the context than from the content. So as parents, we are so much more focused on creating a context from which the kids will learn things that will be useful for them always. And that really means also being super clear on the fact that we as adults, we're part of their context. So if I want my child to have self-control and learn how to deal with his emotions, I need to have self-control and learn how to deal with my emotions. If I want him to be curious and creative, I need to be curious and creative. If I want him to become someone who takes initiatives, I need to take initiatives. So it's really about creating a context where I'm a role model, but I'm not the only one who decides in the family. We're creating a long-lasting relationship built upon trust and authenticity. And there we go. And I think that the best way to start doing this is pretend that we're all on vacation. Because during vacation, you let go of control. You let the kids do what they want to do and so on. And maybe you think, but oh my God, they never go to bed, or they're not eating when they should. Like, let it happen, let it flow, because they just need to find the rhythm that is natural for them. And then, of course, question your own beliefs. Question, why do you think that your kid isn't learning when he's just sitting watching YouTube tutorials? They are learning, but you don't know how to recognize it. And why are you having judgments on the different kinds of activities that your child chooses? But he's just playing. Yeah, because you don't recognize what learning is going on through that play. So it's a lot of questioning your own thoughts, questioning your own judgments, your own fears, and learning how to recognize learning happening everywhere.
And this what you were talking, no, of recognizing what is fear and what is control, and questioning your beliefs. And sometimes as a parent, you have like a feeling, how can you make a difference? Because sometimes it's like, oh, this is, you feel, or it's like sometimes it mix, no, what you feel as a parent that is good for your child, and sometimes you think that is how to recognize what is what.
I mean, I think I think it's like really questioning what we like, our thoughts, what we hear up here, because it's so easy to say, oh no, but I know best because I'm oldest. Only that thought is like, really? Like, what, where does that come from? And to look at it and stop the impulse of saying something or doing something. Like, I had this stupid thing that happened to me and my son maybe half a year ago, where he asked me, because I was preparing a smoothie for myself, and he said, oh, could you prepare one for me too? And I said, sure. And then I gave it to him, and he sipped it, and I could see on his face that he didn't like it. So he was just about to put back the glass on the counter, and I don't know what happened. I turned to him and I said, finish that. And he looked at me like, what? And I'm like, did I just tell you to finish that? And he was like, yeah. And he was really upset. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, it was just this programming of like, don't waste food. Don't waste it. You know, now you asked for this and now I gave it to you. Like, he has the right to say, I don't like this and I don't want it. It wasn't as good as I hoped. Without me going into this tantrum of like, you have to drink it because I prepared it and because we wasted some fruit. Well, then I drink it. You know, like, yeah. So it's like, it's all these things, and it's all the time. It's constant.
And this in a school, for example, let's say there is many workshops in the school, and then your child, and for school, of course, it's difficult for people, you know, when it's a compulsory school and then they try to make the best school or they make the nicest school possible. Still, there's so many children and you need to have certain rules or agreements and stuff. And then there is workshops and everyone needs to go to all the workshops. It feels like a bit like the plants things, you sing, no?
Yes.
And your child needs to go to these workshops that they don't like. I mean, this is a very hard one. Like, how do you do that?
It is.
I mean, in the school, how do they manage a thing like this, and how parents can manage to support the child?
Yeah.
Both because you want your child to have the freedom to nurture himself or herself the way they want.
Yeah.
How?
It's super hard. I mean, it's super hard. I think that in schools, they have two different methods. One is based upon authoritarianism and adultism, which entails a lot of, you know, like scolding kids, punishing them, threatening them, rewarding them, like just trying to force them do what they're supposed to do, which is a horrible thing. Or you turn into this amazing teacher that makes it fun, even though it might not be their own interest, you know, might not be their activity of choice, but because you focus more on them and building a relationship with them and understanding that they're not here because they want to, but they're forced to, then you can actually shift that as a teacher. You can do that. I've done that, and it's amazing. I mean, it is fantastic to do that. But as a parent, I think don't lie to your child. Don't say, oh, but this is super good for you, when you know that your child is suffering, but rather listen to your kid and be like, why don't you like this? Like, what is it about it? What do you need from me? How can I support you? Because in Sweden, for instance, they try to tell parents that we need to be loyal with school and tell the kids how good school is. And I'm like, no, no. If schools aren't capable of making the teaching fun for the kids, that's their problem to solve. My job as a parent is to support my child and to create a relationship with my child. And if my child doesn't like going, I need to acknowledge that and support him in that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, must be, as you say, very hard to, because you have many children and then you need to make all of them happy. That can be very demanding. No,
it is very demanding. Yeah. Plus, I mean, if it were only that, then you have the pressure from above and you have to make them all get good grades, and otherwise the school doesn't look good. So there's like so much more, it's not, the focus isn't on the well-being of the kids, but rather the school to look good or you to look good.
Yeah. And there is also this of like, they say maybe the child doesn't like it because there is something in her, like a blockage, like this child has like a fear for this. That's why he or she doesn't like to do something in a special.
Yeah.
And then it makes parents question themselves, like, oh, is that really true? Is that I need to support something in my child so that they like to do, I don't know what.
Yeah.
No? How do you notice when your child has a blockage in something and one doesn't really like it at all? Like,
yeah, I think you need to listen and you need to take your time. It's like being a private detective. It's about really trying to figure out. And what I see that most parents are doing, they see that the kid isn't doing well and then they minimize it. And they're like, but you'll get over it, or it's nothing. And we're really letting our kids down when we do that. We need to listen to them, and listen not in order to respond, but listen in order to understand them. What is it they need from us? What is it that is so hard? And if you have never worked with creating trust with a child, they won't tell you that easily. They might not even know. And then it's your job to be kind and gentle and work on bonding with the child, work on creating this relationship and invest in the trust bank of your kid. And so if you've done a good job, your kid will trust you and will tell you. And if you've done a poor job, you have very little trust from your child towards yourself. And it will take time for them to open up. That's not the kid's fault. It's not the responsibility of the kid. It is our responsibility. And so the good thing here is that it's never too late. You can actually start doing this even though your kid is a teenager, but it will take more time.
A lot of listening.
A lot of listening, yeah.
And can you talk a bit, not only as a parent, as a teacher, or people who work with children, but as an adult, why is it so important that we learn to relate to children and how to do it? For people because a lot of people don't know how to relate to children.
Oh yeah,
no, they are scared, or I don't know.
Yeah. I think that we forget that we have been kids, and I think that it is super important to go back to our old childhood and try to remember what it was like. What adults did I like? What adults didn't I like? And remember, because in general, it's the same today. Like I have, for instance, I can think about my parents' friends. And there were some friends that I just super liked because they were interested in me. They were wondering about me. Who was I? And I still like those people, even today. Now they're older, but they're still they managed to create a connection with me. And then we have these friends of my parents that they were never really interested in me. I was just their friend's daughter. And to this day, I really have no connection to them. So I think that when you think about children, they are also human beings. They're people just like us. And there are like 3 different levels we can approach a person through. We can go through like this. I see them as they're like 3 different circles. This is not my model. I picked it up somewhere else. But it is like you can either talk about all the superficial stuff, like all the stuff that the kid has, like, oh, that's a cool car, wow, what a nice dress, oh, you have really colorful Legos. We talk about the human having, like what we have. That is like the outer circle, which is the most superficial. Then we can go a little bit deeper, which is the human doing, which is like, oh, I see you're playing with Legos. Oh, you're having fun with your car. Oh, you're dancing around in your dress. That's another level. But the level where we want to connect with is the inner circle, which is the human being. So it goes from human having, human doing to human being. And this is like, wow, that's quite a fancy car you have there. What are you doing with it? What are you playing with it? Like, how do you feel when it does that loop? What do you think about that? Or like, wow, you built a really high tower. How does that make you feel? What is it about? Why, like, if we go more into the thoughts and the feelings of kids, like, what do you think about this? How do you feel about it? Like, when we do that, we're connecting with their core, we're connecting with their being, and that's how we create a connection. But we have to be genuinely interested. If we're not, they are not going to pay attention to us. They feel when we're inauthentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my child is one of my children is like that, like really, really clear, turns around.
Yeah, they
like
just, I mean,
it's like a radar.
yeah, I wish I could do that more as an adult too. When someone comes up and is just hypocritic, I'm like, I wish I could just turn away and say, kids are very honest in that sense, and so if you're not genuine, you're just doing it in order to get a result for yourself, then nah, it's not going to work.
It's like politeness or like protocols. They don't refer
Yeah,
to
or like I would say also, like, really I feel that most adults want something through the kid. They want to manipulate and control them. They want to control their behavior or the outcome of something. So they're coming from a not genuine and not sincere standpoint, and kids, they just pick this up immediately. And if this is how the adult is going to be, just don't work with kids. Don't.
Yeah, like as a parent, there's so much pressure with these things socially. You go out into the world with your children, and then your child is turning their face away to someone, and it's like, so now we should let it go. No, I feel like what you're saying is like, let go of those obligations, social obligations or protocols, and trust, and then adults who are adults will understand and connect, and those who don't, well, they
won't.
They won't, and you cannot please everyone, and you cannot use your children to please people.
No.
You need
it's
to be
hard. It's hard. The social pressure is very tough on us. But that's the only way we can do it. We can't force our kids to do things so that we feel good and successful as parents. That's not the way to go. And we need to respect the kids.
Yeah, and also gratitude or demonstrations of love. And sometimes, when I was a child, I should say thank you, or I should say, and then it's something that is very deep gratitude. That is not something that you can say as a robot. Really, you need to be in contact with it to share it.
Yeah. It comes, it comes. And I, as a mom of a kid that is in the spectrum of neurodiversity, he's on the autism spectrum. I mean, it has taken time for him. He has matured slower than other kids, than neurotypical kids. But it is marvelous to see how he has picked up on these behaviors. Now he says thank you when he's super polite, but he wasn't 3 years ago or 4 years ago, And it has been a long process for me of just like, I need to trust that he will develop this eventually. And if I'm his context, I'll just keep on doing this, and eventually he'll get it.
Thank you so much. And for saying this. No, it gives me, it's like it releases something, I think, in me, at least as a parent, to hear the process, to trust in the process. As you say, society can be, or like the surroundings can be a bit pushy and of performance, and it's very such a relief to hear you. Would you like to say a last words about, like, to close up this into like the education that serves our children in the future?
Yeah, I really, I just really think that we need to rethink the whole concept, stop trying to control their growth and their interests and their learning, but just go back to nature, go back to the most organic. Remember that they have come with this configuration to grow and to learn constantly. And as long as we don't interfere in that process, they will always stay curious, they will always want to learn more. But it's when we start to control them that they are actually, it's like they shrink, they stop growing, and they stop developing this curiosity, and they start conforming. Or maybe they don't, maybe they will actually give you a really hard time because they're shouting, like, set me free. And I really believe that children are born with the right to be free. They are born with the right to a voice. They are born with the right to make their own decisions. And as adults, our job is really to support them, whoever they are, however they want to do things. We need to learn how to support them unconditionally.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Veronica.
Yeah, it's very nurturing, relieving, and inspiring to hear you and to know that you are there to connect with you and support us in our journey as parents, and nurturing these seeds in our lives.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And thank you also to everyone who's watching. You have watched this video in Rebecca Corritz's page in the Wise Humanity Summit website. And if you want to learn more about Rebecca and connect with her and nurture yourself and your family, you can find her links there. See you in the next talk.